You need this duck for your homestead. Well, maybe not this duck exactly, but do you need ducks on your homestead? I don't know. What do you think, Sonny? You say ducks should be on every homestead, don't you? You just want to go back to your buddies. What's going on? But really though, should you get ducks? Doesn't matter what breed you're talking about, just ducks in general. Well, that depends on many different factors, and you gotta ask yourself many questions. Most importantly, how much ground do you have? Well, maybe that's not the most important thing, but it's definitely an important factor. Me, I don't have very much ground for these ducks. I have an acre in total, and these guys are probably on only a quarter of it. But, considering I have 32 ducks in total, not 32 in here, but 32 ducks in general, and this acre is plenty enough for them. And that's even living with geese and as well as having chickens. In my experience, ducks really don't need a whole lot of ground as long as they are provided a few different things. For one, natural food. They are good foragers, especially compared to chickens in my experience, whether or not you're talking a free range environment or not. Now, ducks do not like to be penned up. I have found that they do not do well in a penned up environment, as in closed off completely, small area. They just won't thrive. Chickens are better off in an environment like that, even though I would disagree with that practice. But you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. And any bird is better than none, no matter what environment you put them in, as long as they're being treated good. But there are different factors compared to chickens that may make ducks a good fit for your homestead. But there are some things that come at a cost. Number one is money. Ducks are generally more expensive, at least where I live here in the United States, and probably most of the United States in general. If you go to Tractor Supply or your local farm supplier, whether it be some co-op or Menards in the Midwest, but ducks generally cost more than twice the amount of chickens do at a young age. So we're talking week old or coming from a hatchery. At my local Tractor Supply, they were almost 3 times the price of chickens. From getting them from the hatchery, which I went that route, they were about 5 times the price. So they definitely have much more upfront costs. But there is a bonus to that. You really gotta come and interrupt me? But there is a bonus to that. If we're talking about money, we might as well talk about the elephant in the room. Can you make money off of them? And the answer is definitely yes. Probably a little bit better or more so than chickens. I've seen duck eggs around my area go for almost 4 times the price of chicken eggs. Can I talk? Dang geese. Maybe you shouldn't get geese for your homestead, but I would highly disagree with that statement. But they're just very disruptive. Leave me be. Go. Ah. But duck eggs cost about 4 times the price of chicken eggs. I've seen chicken eggs go for about $2 to $3 a dozen around here for free-range, fresh farm egg situation. Duck eggs, generally speaking, go about $10 a half a dozen in this area. So you can definitely charge a lot more for them. But selling them might be an issue. The market is just not there, at least here in the United States. Same goes with their meat. Duck meat goes for way more than chicken meat does. At least here. But if you don't have a market, try and make a market for it. Now that green organic things are kind of a big craze right now, you can definitely argue that ducks are a greener, healthier product, whether it be their meat or their eggs, because eggs from ducks, generally speaking, have more vitamins and minerals than what chicken eggs do, and so does their meat. But the downside to that is duck meat is kind of a little fattier, but that can be cooked off, and that also depends on how they're processed too. And if you can market yourself with these ducks as a green, organic, environmentally friendly product, which you definitely can, you can charge that high premium for duck meat or duck eggs and become self-sufficient with the money side of things. And another thing to say on that side of things, one of your biggest costs, whether it be with chickens, ducks, geese, whatever we're talking about, is feed. My ducks, which I have runner ducks, they're one of the best foragers out there. They really don't need a whole lot of grains or feed in general. But I also give them enough, visitors. But my ducks generally do not eat a whole lot of grain from me. But that comes from having enough ground, and they can forage for most of the insects. They'll eat a little bit of grass, and as long as they have plenty of fresh grass and bugs and all that, they barely touch that grain. So your feed costs can go way down. But in the wintertime, if you're in the northern hemisphere like I am, especially in an area where we get a few months worth of winter, now you're paying for feed because you have to have food for them in the winter. Now, you could do seasonal things on the size of your flock. For me, in the future going on, my flock will probably be about the largest during the summertime. Well, spring to fall, I should say. Before some get processed, some get sold off to other people that want duck. Sorry, I have a duck that escaped right now. But, so you can do other things to eliminate some of your feed costs. Now, speaking of wintertime, ducks in general are a hardier animal than chickens. They can tolerate colder and more extreme temperature changes than most chickens. However, there are different breeds of chickens that can accommodate some more extreme temperature changes, but in general, ducks will fare better in extreme temperature changes. Now, there's a downside to that, and that's during the summertime. Ducks overheat, in my experience, far more than chickens do. But that can be easily negated with the other major need of ducks, and that's water access. I can tell you right now, if you live in a desert, ducks are not going to work very well for you. They need plenty of fresh water, pretty much at all times. They are messy because they love to splash water around. So, if you do not have fresh water access, ducks are not going to work. Especially if you're in an area where your water access is limited because you're in a drought-prone area, it might not work very well for you. You'd be definitely better off with chickens, which do not require nearly as much water as ducks do. But if you ask me, probably the most important thing to consider is if you actually like them. I've raised ducks, chickens, geese, turkeys pretty much all throughout my life. You know, being from a homesteading family, I was exposed to all of them. And when I got to place my own here, I never expected to get ducks. That was more of my girlfriend's idea, and thank goodness she did. As they're now my second favorite. I love geese more than ducks, but that's a topic for another video. I never planned on getting them, but I definitely have no regrets. They've been the funniest little birds I've ever had. I've been actually really surprised how easy they are to keep. The only struggle is the fresh water, because they love to make a mess with the water that you give them. But that's a downside, and I think that's easily negated about how cute they are, how fun they are, and they're just awesome birds. A point I forgot to mention was eggs. Egg production. Chickens compared to ducks. From my experience, chickens usually slow down during the temperature extremes. Ducks don't slow down nearly as much, but in prime weather, ducks will not produce as much as chickens. I find with a good egg laying breed between chickens or ducks, they will produce about the same amount during a year. They will produce the same amount during a year that a chicken will. It's just, chickens, they're definitely a little bit more seasonal from my experience. Now, that may be because I've always done free ranging and they're more exposed to the weather as it is, but the ducks, it's kind of like a slow and steady with their production. That's all I have to really say, and I hope I helped you determine whether or not you want ducks or not. If you find anything helpful with what I said, please give a like and subscribe. I'm always going to try to help other homesteaders out, especially newcomers like me, on living a greener life. Thanks for watching. This has been Colby from Roaming Ducks Farm.